Hey, how's that for a dramatic entrance, everybody? Welcome, welcome. Hey, look, we're right at the bottom of the hour. It's almost as if I planned it. That is great. I have done this before. I'm so glad to see you. Some familiar faces, some new faces. I'm glad for all of your faces. They look good to me. It is morning for me, but I know that it is afternoon for the vast majority of you. So good morning or good afternoon, and welcome to our visitor experience workshop. Oh, we're more than halfway through August. I can hardly believe it. Leadership team training is around the corner. So I know that some of you are probably in your final weeks in whatever role you have. Maybe you are on the visitor host team. Maybe you are president. I don't know. I'm so glad you're here regardless. But maybe you are thinking you're getting a little head start if you're going to be on the visitor host team. And that's awesome. You're welcome. Whoever you are, whatever the role is, you are welcome here. And I hope you find something useful for either a chapter you support or a chapter you're a member in, because we want this to be practical. We are going to solve some mysteries. We're going to plug up some leaks. We'll roll out the red carpet. You just choose your metaphor that we are going to the imagery that works for you, because we know that some chapters are staying small when they could be growing, and it's because we're leaking somewhere in our visitor experience. So we are going to examine that today. I have a very lovely helper today and colleague, Amber Volkin. Thank you for doing what you're about to do to make this efficient. Love it, love it. Also, you may be interested in knowing that we are recording today's call. So if you have colleagues, fellow chapter members, etc., who are not able to be part of this today, we are going to put this probably on the YouTube channel, where we have a lot of other things on the BNI Team USA YouTube channel. And we will make that available and let you know when it is posted so that you can share it with other people in your chapter. Let's start our time together today by going back in time, shall we? Do you remember your first BNI meeting? Maybe you knew some people. Maybe you didn't know anybody. Maybe it was a great experience. Maybe it wasn't so great, but undoubtedly you may have been thinking things like, what's a membership committee? What are these people talking about? What's going to happen next? Who are these people? But we get used to these things the longer we are in a chapter, and it makes it harder for us to remember the newness of it. And we forget that the purpose of a BNI meeting is to showcase our members' businesses and the value of BNI for our visitors. So take a moment and let me come with you into the past. Put in the chat, what were your first impressions of your first meeting? What were you experiencing? Cold water. Oh, that wasn't your first experience, Greg. That was what you were drinking. Got it. I'm caught up now. What were your first impressions of your first BNI meeting? I want to know, was it awkward for you? Was it exciting? Were you confused? What was happening in those first meetings? Okay, all of them. Right, Michelle. It was all of those things. Exactly. We were experiencing this. You loved it. Jackie, you wanted to throw up. Wow. So that's a little bit of overwhelm maybe there, right? Yeah, it was scary. It's all of it. And if we can tap in even just a little bit before we start talking about the visitor experience to the emotions of the visitor experience, I think it will help give us the filter we need to take the practical steps going forward. Again, whether you're supporting a chapter or you are a member of a chapter, this will apply. Yeah, I see. I hear you, Lorraine. Why do I want to drive so early in the morning? Yeah, I'm sure that was a common thought too. All right, so let's review the touch points we have with our members before, during, and after a chapter visit. All of these are part of the visitor experience, and they all coordinate with some automated processes in BNI Connect, but we are the human element, so we are going to talk about what we do to influence the human beings that are coming either into our room or they're logging into our Zoom calls, because I know we have a variety of meeting formats here. We have established that the phone call before the meeting is a great place to start building relationships. That's a core value. The welcome, the open networking, all of the time, online or in person, when we haven't even begun the minute-by-minute agenda yet. All of those are starting to build a relationship and create an impression for our visitors of what BNI value might be. Then during the meeting, whether it's individually in the chat or sitting next to someone. We want to make sure they're connected to people who are strategic. We want to explain what's happening in the meeting, keep them engaged, don't let them be confused. And then we have that very strategic time at the end of the meeting for our visitor orientation. This is when we get right in front of them to give them exactly the information they need to take the next step and make a decision about a BNI membership. And if you have been on any calls at all with Gina Harold, or you've seen us talk about the sales process as far as it concerns the visitor experience, you may recall that it often takes between 7 and 12 follow-up touch points before we can close a sale. And a sale is just us helping a person, a buyer, potentially make a decision about something good for their business. And so it's not anything manipulative or pushy, but we want then to follow up with them, ask if they have questions, and make sure they know how to apply for membership. Then the membership committee can do what they do best. So these are all the touch points we've been talking about for the last couple of years now, and we will do it again next month when we're training the new visitor hosts. But these are the pieces that make a great experience. And when they go smoothly, our chapters grow. We have new referral partners regularly coming into our chapters, and people are making money. But there are a few places where we might leak. We might leak our visitors. We might lose them before they actually become members. Now, if our visitors are leaking, that's not our problem. Hopefully you have a doctor in your chapter. But if our chapters are leaking visitors, that's some action we can take. And so we want to make sure that we are focusing like a laser beam on the pieces of the visitor experience where we might be losing members, and then put some practices in place. We're going to go over these super briefly, each one of them, and then I want to allow you to have plenty of time in breakout rooms where you'll be able to choose which of these you want to go in and discuss with other members. But we'll do an overview first, and I'm going to start with that just super briefly. We'll take a quick poll after this, and then we will go into breakout rooms so that you can have as much time as possible. I know that's something valuable for you. So the 4 places we're going to concentrate today are registration, open networking, the orientation, and follow-up. There may be other places where we're losing our members and we're missing opportunities, but these are the 4 that we're going to concentrate on. And the first one is registration. And we sometimes lose potential members here because we don't capture their information. This is not a very sexy way to lose members. It's clerical, it's administrative, but it's so important. And sometimes we lose them because we haven't captured their information when they register to come see the meeting. If they don't register at all, then we're not adding them. If they do register, then we might not have all of their information. But if we don't have that information, then we can't follow up with them later. So the beginning is an important piece, and we want to know who invited them. We want to know what their industry is so we can prepare them for success during the meeting. When we don't, we are losing opportunities to build relationships and even get them to the meeting in the first place. We also might lose people sometimes in the open networking. Extroverts and visitors who already know people in your chapter are going to navigate the open networking pretty effortlessly. We like it, but that's not everybody. And if an extrovert comes alone and isn't prepared, doesn't know what to expect, that person will feel awkward and uncomfortable. Introverts, people who don't know anyone in there, see people who don't know how to network, and networking, people, is no joke. When they don't know how to navigate a room of strangers, they can feel disconnected, they can feel invisible. This is true online or in person. If there's no breakout room, there's nothing happening, and visitors are just looking on mute, listening. Oh, you have a grandchild now. Oh, you went to a baseball game. That's great. We're losing our visitors because they're not engaged immediately. We could be making connections that will lead to business. And then finally in the orientation, well, not finally, thirdly in the orientation, this might be the biggest leak of all. We're not having them, or we're not being effective with them. They're lasting too long. We're not giving the right information. We want to do everything we can to strategically move them toward a decision about applying to the chapter. And then when we're not doing any follow-up, we are just leaving money on the table. We are leaving our members at the end of a great meeting wondering, how could I do this every week? What would it be like? Well, I guess I'll never know because nobody ever called me. And we had a really great first date. I thought maybe they were going to kiss me. It was really good, but I guess they're not going to call me back. Oh, well, I don't know what to do next. We don't want our visitors to feel like that. So these are the 4 areas that we're going to talk about. I wonder if you already kind of have your finger on the pulse. Let's take a poll. Amber, if you could launch that. Where do you think, whether it's in a chapter you're in or a chapter you support, where do you find that your chapter might be leaking? Maybe you are missing opportunities in that clerical part of the registration and attendance. Maybe your open networking experience is not a great one, or not having orientation. I did a whole hour-long call this morning with one region just on the orientation. It's very, very strategic. Maybe nobody's following up. And I love that some of you are being very honest to say, I don't even know. I came and I'm just ready to learn. You packed on your feedback of lifelong learning. That was a agricultural reference. All right. It could be more than one. I think you're able to answer. Maybe you're like that leaky hose that I showed you a picture of. I don't know. Where are they? All right. Well, we've got about 87%. We'll give it 10 more seconds. Anybody else know? What do you think? All right, let's close this and show the results. All right, a lot of follow-up. Okay, I imagine that breakout room will probably have a lot of you in it. But outside of that, pretty evenly spread out. It could be any of these places. So at least we can find some places where we can stop the leaks and make some differences. So this is going to be very solution-oriented. All right, let's go through each of these very quickly, and then we'll get you into breakout rooms so you can start talking about solutions. First of all, the registration. That's the first place we might be losing our members. The visitor portal can be very effective as a kind of CRM for the chapters because it keeps all their contact information of our visitors. And then it's easy to retrieve if we have a big homecoming event or a visitor event or a stack day, or we need to pass a referral or ask a question. We have all of their information in BNI Connect. And it's a great way for us to start those automated emails that they get with the videos and links to help them prepare for the meeting. It gets them excited before they even get to the meeting. So how can you find these registrations? If you've been on the visitor team this year, the host team, you already know this. Otherwise, this will be a little preview of what you'll get in your training. There is something in the operations part of Connect called the Visitor Registration and Attendance Portal. And that's where you will find a place to add a registration if a visitor shows up and they haven't registered. You can check the visitor registrations the day before your meeting for that pre-meeting phone call. And you can mark attendance afterwards. All of these work together to help generate the right information for your visitors and to help you sound excited and prepared when you make your phone calls before or after the meetings. And so once you get in there, you see those 3 options and you see how this fits into the process when you link the registration part to the attendance part. They go together because when we mark the attendance, we're generating something into the BNI Connect system that triggers an email that says, hey, thank you for coming. Here's a link to apply. And if you have questions, here is what you should do. It's a next step piece of information. When we don't mark the attendance, the default is that they get an email that says, we missed meeting you. And if there are any managing directors on this call, you know that you've gotten emails from a visitor who just hits reply and says, I was there. Didn't you remember meeting me? And it's not what we want our visitors to have. So if we register them and mark attendance, that administrative piece fits them into the bigger picture and they get an idea of the professional and efficient system that BNI can be for their business. Open networking, we can often lose our people there because sometimes we don't do it, or it's unstructured, or it's focused on our members. There might be lots of other reasons that you can think about where we lose our members during open networking. But the important thing for us to recall is that it is 16% of our meeting. We don't want to waste it. We don't want it to be just about us catching up with each other. We can do that before and after and during the week. but we want this to be a strategic time to make connections to our visitors online or in person. It's so valuable because it's less structured than the minute by minute agenda, but it's still structured enough that it's intentional, moving us toward that orientation when they can make a buying decision. And we are not taking full advantage. I've been to chapters where they have an open networking question posted and everybody can kind of ask it, or breakout rooms where they have something. But when we're focused on our visitor, remembering that's what the meeting is for, this time can be very, very valuable. If you're in person, we want to show our visitors at the very beginning what networking is about. We're the best in the world. BNI does this better than anybody. Let's show people how to network. It's not about shoving business cards into people's hands. It's about asking intentional questions, building relationships, and hopefully farming and not hunting. So these are some questions you might consider asking. And physically and in your demeanor, we want to make sure that we are being open. Part of that includes how we stand in our groups. Maybe that's been an education moment in one of your chapter meetings. You can see the donut is closed. If I'm an outsider, I don't know how to come into that circle, but a croissant is nice and open. So it welcomes people in. It makes it seem more inclusive. As we're having those conversations, we want to make sure that they are business related or at least business adjacent. If 3 or 4 people are just talking about a particular baseball game they saw the night before, it's going to be less inclusive and less professional for somebody who wanted to come in and really talk about business. Doesn't mean we can't ever, but it is something for us to keep in mind because this time is for our visitors. We want them to feel included. You can do the same thing online. There is nothing worse in a Zoom meeting than being on there and watching 20 people talk about something you're not familiar with. No one's introducing you. You feel invisible. You feel irrelevant. We can use breakout rooms very strategically in our online meetings so that visitors are connected either to other visitors and they get some clear expectations of the next 90 minutes, or they're mixed in with all of the members and they get to have some introductions and people say, oh, I noticed you're visiting. Some online chapters I've seen, they do this very effectively. They'll say, if you're a visitor with us, would you please put a V in front of your name so that we'll know that you're a visitor with us today? Because sometimes you don't know if you're a member from another chapter, or if I'm a visitor, I don't know who the other visitors are. I think that was a really interesting way to do that. So this time can be used strategically. You all know how I feel about the orientation. I love it so much. These are the things we need to talk about within the visitor orientation. They need to know the difference between referrals and leads. Everybody wants new business, and we have a way to help them do that effectively. Testimonials can be very important. If you have somebody in the contact sphere of your visitor in the orientation, they can say, this is what I was doing before, this is what I've learned in BNI, and this is how my business is now. Super easy. It can be a minute or less. And time and money are the things we never have enough of. Visitors are the same. So we can tell them about those investments and commitments, and then we have to make sure they know how to apply. They may or may not, but we have to let them know. So we're not going to start with, do you have any questions? Because we know they either don't know the questions they have, they're going to ask the questions we're answering anyway, or they're going to do some kookamaloo question nobody else cares about. And we don't want that to be the beginning of our orientation. So let's say what they liked about the meeting, that will inform our follow-up. And what are they doing now to market their business and how effective is it? That starts to set them on the course of thinking of the connection between BNI and marketing their business. And then as follow-up, since you know they get automated emails with a link to apply, why not call to say, did you get the link to apply? How can I help you? And that will kind of launch you into the next possible conversations. Not the only way to have the call, but certainly a possible way since you know that's happening. And remember to tell your story. This might be when we ask our visitors if they have any other questions, because one-on-one, you can answer those questions. And you might want to schedule a follow-up. I know that there are people who are visitor hosts over and over again in their chapters because they make money when they follow up with the visitors, even if they never come back again. That is definitely an advantage of leadership. There, I did that much. All right. Now, why don't you guys talk about it? Amber, is there anything in the chat that we should pause to address before we go into our breakout rooms?
The only thing that came up is what happens when a visitor shows up and they haven't pre-registered. So we may want to talk about that, and we've got time for it.
Yeah, there is, when you go into the visitor portal, you can add a registration, view registrations, or mark attendance. If you click, if somebody who's the visitor host maybe has a laptop or tablet, when people are coming, you can open up BNI Connect, add that registration as soon as they're there, even if it's just minimal information to fill in later. And you can just add that registration. If it happens after the meeting, there are other choices within the BNI Connect visitor portal that says add a registration after a meeting. So it has kind of planned for all of your contingencies within BNI Connect in the visitor part.
Fantastic. That was the only thing.
Okay. And Paula, I love when business is compared to pastry too. Croissants. Yes. Yum, yum. All right, then let's open up these breakout rooms. We are going to have 5 options for you. If you want a little bit more about the registration in the portal, then go to that one. If you are in person and you want to know how to make the most of that, we have a room for you. If you are online, same thing, or orientation or follow-up. And then you'll have 15 minutes to have some open discussion. There should be a managing director in each of these. They will be a great resource for you. I know Ron is going to help you follow up like a rock star. You're all going to leave that room saying, boom. And you're going to close the deals. And then we're going to have various managing directors in the other one. So choose your room. This is, as Matt Biggins in Massachusetts says, choose your own adventure. And okay. All
So
right.
if you haven't done this before, on the bottom of your screen, you should see breakout rooms. Click on that. A window will pop up and you can select the room you want to go to. And if you don't see that, or you're on a cell phone and can't figure it out, just raise your hand and we'll direct you to the room. We'll move you to the room you want to go to.
Yeah, and you can put in the chat as well. Oh, did we, in the options, did you put let them choose their rooms?
It's possible that didn't happen.
There's no rooms, Amber.
Yeah, okay, let's try it again. Under the options here.
There we go. Redo. Just kidding.
Okay.
My first time on Zoom.
Now do you see them? Oh, heads are nodding. Good, heads are nodding.
Okay, good.
We have time, so this is fine.
So we're 7 minutes ahead of schedule, so we're winning.
Excellent.
And yes, it's okay if you switch rooms part of the way through. It's a choose your own adventure. So go where you feel like you need the most information.
Look at all the follow-up ones already. Good job.
Did you want me to go to one?
Yeah, I don't have one of you in orientation or open networking. So either of those would be great.
Okay.
And I'll go wherever you don't.
Okay, I'll go to in-person open networking.
Okay.
I still don't see any selections either.
Okay, just tell us, put it in the chat where you want us to put you in.
Well, good old follow-up. Yeah, okay.
Sally, you want to go and follow up?
Yes, please.
Yep.
Could somebody put me in orientation? I'm having a hard time too.
Yep.
Thank you.
This is Susan and I want online open networking.
You got it. What else?
I'm back.
Hi.
Hi. Jackie was already in the open networking in person. Is there another one that doesn't have an MD?
It doesn't make sense for you to go to open networking online. Can you help with the visitor portal and the registration part? That'd be good.
Sure.
And Robert, Crystal, and Nicole, can I help put you into a breakout room? I have the power. Anything strike your fancy? Did that change your lives? I expect nothing less. I sense that it did. I really do. All right, is everybody back yet? I put this little post-it to remind me to start recording again. I always forget that. And we have half a meeting. That's no good.
We still have a bunch of folks, or no, I think, yeah, everybody should be back.
Okay, good, good, good. And I saw earlier in the chat I was looking through there while you all were in your breakout room, Ken, you asked if the slides would be available, and yes, we will have these slides. I will put them together for you and we'll make those available. And you can use those in future presentations or for future reference. They might be good for education moments through the year. If this is a process that you want your chapter to work on, this might be a helpful thing. All right, so as Gina Harold likes to say, let's talk about what you talked about. Does someone from one of those rooms want to tell us either a solution they found or maybe a really creative approach to something? I hope that it was oh good, Michelle, it was an amazing discussion. I love that. Yes, ask the visitor host to request a headshot. Oh, I love that, they're gonna feel bad. Michelle, tell me more about your amazing discussion.
Well, first of all, we're all in either hybrid or online groups, and that's a wonderful support for us. There were 6 of us in the room.
Good.
And we learned from each other, and it was about primarily how to have an outreach beyond the virtual. And some people do service projects, luncheons, various get-togethers, but that are more serious in nature. I mean, there's a social part of it, but that it's required. You don't just get to beg off because you live too far. Somebody said, just suck it up. But it was also good to hear that you can put visitors in a breakout room. You have some sort of a icebreaker question, and then you just have maybe somebody in their contact sphere or a visitor host, although one chapter said they're small enough that everyone's a visitor host, which is also important. So that we're all focused in the same direction, and that some people will do breakout rooms before and after, or they'll have the icebreaker before, and then after the orientation, they'll take a few minutes so that everyone can reorient towards the visitors after hearing the commercials and do some business.
Yeah, such good stuff. And Michelle, to your point, there were 6 or 7 of you who could all support each other in this particular format. It's also the easiest way to visit each other's chapters to help either hold them accountable or add different ideas or see what it looks like when they try it before you try it yourself. It's way harder for me to do that in an in-person chapter and me go from Seattle down to Miami. I can't just pop into one of Ron's chapters and say, hey, Ron Leonard, how's it going in there? But when you guys have this online option, you really can learn from each other quite easily. And it's a great way to see what other chapters are doing. I love that. Yeah. strategic grouping. I'm seeing some of these in the chat. Some of these are going awfully quickly in the chat. So if any of you have a story that you want to share or some good ideas, I would love for you. Yeah, thanks, Michael. So we can hear more about it.
So something that we talked about in our group breakout session about kind of networking in person and open networking was, basically how to encourage people to not just sit down and get comfortable at a meeting. If there's tables or chairs, how to make sure that everybody's open and available and not closed off. One suggestion was to put crime scene tape around all the tables and chairs until open networking was over, and then people can sit down to kind of visually show everybody, hey, if you're sitting down, you're not going to be approachable. So,
Yeah.
obviously you don't always have to go that far, but
Yeah.
You can't tell where you heard that, Michael.
It's so true, because I don't know if you've been, when I have gone to visit chapters and they don't know who I am because I'm probably out of their region. If they all just walk in and put their stuff down and sit at the table, it's very awkward for visitors. And I think it's a time we lose them, and then we have to win them back over the whole rest of the meeting. And if we don't, then by the time we get to that orientation, it's really going to be an uphill battle. So we can definitely do something about that in the open networking. That's a great point. Thank you for sharing that, Michael.
We
Who else?
talked a bit about name badges, making sure all the members have theirs, so it helps when you're introducing people.
Yes.
This is in an open networking meeting, and also having name badges for the visitors ahead of time.
Yes, such a good point, Carol. As I visit chapters all over the country, I never know who the visitors are and who I should ask questions of as members, because no one has name badges on. So at least you can differentiate for the visitors who the other visitors might be, like, hey, you don't know what's going on either. Or a member, you might have answers to my questions. Such a great point.
And Jacqueline also brought up something called bump and roll. And the idea that when you meet a visitor, just find out what they do and almost immediately introduce them to somebody in their sphere.
Yeah. Yeah. Keep them meeting people. That's great. Be very intentional. Oh, Nola, what do you have?
I am trying to get Liz Corson to raise her hand to tell us what she told us, because she had some amazing stuff. So Liz is not going to do it. I'm going to say for Liz, unless you interrupt me, Liz. As president of her chapter, what she does is she looks at the visitor portal in advance, and she she looks at the professions coming, and then she contacts her members who would make great referral partners for that visitor, and makes sure that they are ready to greet that visitor host or to that visitor, and then introduce around into the chapter. So it immediately gives that visitor a feel of, geez, there's business to be had here. And the other advice that she had was, don't ever, 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 ever pronounce somebody's name incorrectly.
Yes.
Even if you have to get phonetic spelling from it, make sure the president knows how to say the first and last name. Great advice.
Yes.
You're welcome, Liz.
Oh, thank you, Nola. Jenny, I have two more quick things, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so in addition to what Nola included, thank you, Nola, I always ask as people are signing in for hobbies and hometowns, because it might very well be if someone's from Cincinnati and I know we have a member from Cincinnati, I'm going to drag that person right over and say, hey, you all have something really important in common. You're from Cincinnati. And it helps me introduce somebody to someone else, whether it's one-to-one or to the group. So hobbies and hometowns are very important connectors. And also the first thing that my visitor hosts do when someone is in the room is they point out where the restrooms are. Because if you're in a new place and you don't know, you're about to be plied with coffee, or you've already had a couple cups, I'm telling you what, restrooms, people sometimes are too embarrassed to ask, and you need to be upfront about that. And the second thing I ask my people to do is bring the visitor right over to me, because it shows a lot of status. If you're able to interrupt the president of a chapter and say, hey, I'd like you to meet this visitor, and I turn around and I've got my hand out and I'm smiling, and I already know how to pronounce that name. I say, hey, how are you doing, so and so? And that is huge, because if someone has the status to interrupt the president, that really makes the member look important and honors the visitor. So those are a couple more things that I do as president that I hope helps make my visitors, guests, and subs more welcome to my chapter.
I love all of that, Liz, because it's not just stuff you do in a chapter. That's excellent networking. And that's what we're showing our visitors is I want to bring someone over to Liz, and I want Liz to be happy to see them, and we have a conversation, and then I'll introduce you to somebody else when we find a common connection. This is how we're showing them. We're educating them in a very pleasant, informal way, but with structure. This is how we network, and this is how business gets done here. And I'm imagining, because I go way over the top in everything, but I'm imagining people coming into these chapters and going, oh, what? This is amazing. Just, they can't get over it. And they're just one gasp after another. That's what we should be going for. And then anything less than that can still be impressive. Yeah. So good. What are some of these other ones that are in the chat, or does anybody else want to share some? Love, love, love. Hobbies and hometowns. Yeah, let's make that a country music song. Nola, get on that.
I did like the shout out about food and educating the members not to grab their food and sit down and ignore the visitors, because the visitors don't know what's going on. I think that's a great call out. Yeah.
And sometimes that can help inform the decision we make about what kinds of refreshments, if any, to have at our meetings. If we're going to have a fully plated breakfast, that is a conversation you want to have, because it's difficult to stand with a full plate of eggs and bacon and network at all. It's very hard, but there might be a 5 minutes till you say, everybody go get your breakfast, or you only have finger foods, or you only have coffee. I think those are the kinds of decisions. We just saw a global survey that it's 90% of the people surveyed who are members of chapters said the venue is very important to them, which means that includes the food and the drink. And is there a place for visitor orientation? And finding just the right venue for our in-person meetings matters to the members. So chances are it matters to the visitors as well. They want to see a place that's at least clean and kept and looks semi-professional. And you're not going to have, memory from college triggered when your feet stick to the floor in a place or something. We want to be like, oh, it feels like a fraternity party and that's fun, but I want to do business instead. So all of these things are very important to think about. All right, well, we've got about 10 more minutes. We're certainly happy to answer some questions. I do have some resources that I want to share with you at the end, but before we do, I wanted to see if there are any kind of divergent questions you have that don't have to do specifically with those things, or if somebody has a last minute comment, because I'm just going to we're going to have some things uploaded to the chat and show you some places to find things for future reference. But are there any other things? Such good sharing. I love when you guys stimulate.
Michelle has a question.
Oh.
Michelle wants to know who can join the visitor orientation, the power partners, the membership team, the visitor host. Who should be on that?
Yes. Yeah. I think that depends. We don't need to limit it to one visitor host and just the visitors, especially if you have an unusual category and you want somebody, the person who invited them would be a good person if they don't know anybody else, person in their contact sphere. Why not have somebody from the membership committee? I think any or all of those options are good. If it's one visitor host and one visitor, and there's a slightly awkward vibe with either of them, a third person might be helpful. Of course, you don't want to choose an awkward person for your visitor host. I would think you'd want your orientation to be your very best salesperson and your most comfortable person.
Exactly.
I have a question.
Yes.
You may mention this at the end when you give us some resources, but that visitor portal, our president or vice president and visitor host went on vacation, and I'm the president and I'm trying to manage it and figure it out. I'm just curious. I cannot figure out how to mark someone not attended in there. So is there a resource that I could find that would help me figure that out, and where can I find it?
That's a much easier one. Christopher, if they don't attend, you do nothing. They will automatically get the email that says we missed meeting you. So the default is that they didn't show up, and you just mark the people who did show up.
Got it.
And I am so glad you asked that question because I've been struggling with that too. I'm like, what do I do when they're not here?
I spent 30 minutes looking for an answer to that.
Oh, yeah, Jen.
Can I just add to that? You know, the great thing too is I know some people would delete those people. I don't recommend my people to delete them because they're great people to follow up with and reschedule to a future event. And I think that's important that when your visitor hosts come back, that they can make those changes. But I definitely don't delete them, but just leave them there so I can go back and capture them and re-invite.
I totally agree. That's such a good point. Yeah, because you don't know if you're going to want them later, and they're right there. Why would you get rid of them? Yeah. Hey, Lorraine, what else?
So I've had people that have come in that weren't registered, and it may be a day or two later that I get to put the information in, and I go to put them in and it won't, the meeting date has been blocked out. I can't put them in for the meeting that they actually attended. So I've always had to like register them for the next meeting, which is, it's just not making any sense to me.
And how long after the meeting are you trying to add them?
So we meet on Friday. Sometime it might be Saturday or it might be Monday.
Yeah.
I try to do it on Friday, but it doesn't always happen.
Yeah. Well, I think after a very short amount of time, I think it's a very short window, and I could be wrong. So if somebody knows this better, you can correct me. But I believe instead of going through the visitor portal, there is a different place in the operations that you'll look for to kind of manipulate the things afterwards. And then you should be able to choose the date from there.
So it's in operations region or operations chapter? Operations chapter.
Hey, Lorraine, we can do a one-to-one because you and I are in the same area, but realistically, you just put in the current date. And then when you go in to edit them, you can go back date and put the back date because I just did it recently. So you don't have to get complicated. Just in the registration, put in the current date. And then after it's in and saved, go back in and edit them with a little paper and pen. And then you can change it to the correct date to the previous week.
You're getting
That's why I love you, Jen. That's why I love you, Jen Jump.
Paula loves you too. Paula gave you 2 enthusiastic thumbs up. That's super helpful.
Thank you, everybody.
What a great workaround. Michelle, what else?
Well, I was just going to say that happens very soon after the meeting. I very often can't add visitors who weren't there. So I'm happy to know that too.
Yeah, good.
I would think it's because of the fact that your VP has finished her report. And I wonder with the gal who's editing hers, whether or not visitors show up properly because the meeting has been finished when the VP does her report.
Not in my case, that I am the one doing the report.
And great question, Alec. My people, I teach them to work together to check. The VP communicates with the visitor host first to make sure that they've done their job. And I coach them to do it within 24 hours. So then the VP can close their report so that they're working together as a team.
I love that.
Yeah, still wonder though, when you edit it later on, if that changes anything in the report.
Those are some good questions. Maybe we could get Jeremy Walsh to give us a little bit more information. Kathy, you have got to have been registering a lot of visitors with all of the small growth, the growth champion stuff you've been doing. Enlighten us. Yes.
Registering, re-registering, moving. Yeah, all of the above. Or oops, they showed up and I forgot to register them, but I had sent them, thanks to Ron Leonard, the calendar invite, so they came. So that was a huge thing, is that calendar invite. But yeah, you go into operations chapter, then manage visitors, and there's a manage visitors after attending the meeting. And then all you have to do is ask the vice president to unlock the Palms report. They go right back in. So they unlock it, add them, and it goes in. So it's super easy to do and make sure all the numbers are right, because on Power of One, we want those numbers, right? For our traffic lights. So that's easy. Yeah, I am learning to be an expert on registering visitors.
I bet. That's great. And Alec, you gave a nod to your head, so that's okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that answers the question, but it does
Okay.
require that you unlock the report
Yeah.
and then finish it again so that somebody gets their, I had a visitor here in
It's
their
like we
report.
have to talk to each other or something.
Yes, ma'am.
Jeff, I see you trying to raise your
Yeah.
physical hand over there.
Yes, I have a question. I could have done the electronic, yeah.
That's fine.
What bothers me with our visitors is we have about, our visitors sign up like on the afternoon before the meeting. And I have the function of contacting before the meeting, and I often just get their voicemail or text or email. So I don't really get a chance to do all the prep. And we have people that just show up at the meeting. So that's probably 25% of our visitors. Is there a way to mitigate that?
I would think those are some great opportunities for your education coordinator, because everyone is meant to be inviting. We know, 40+% don't invite, but if everybody is meant to be, then we can encourage them to invite using the app and to encourage their visitors to register with the app. Those are the kinds of things that we can do member-wide, the whole chapter-wide, I mean. And then there also could be some conversations if you're doing the before phone calls. A lot of people are finding success with texting first and say, hey, this is Jeffrey from the such and such chapter. Want to make sure you're ready for tomorrow's meeting. Is it okay if I call you in a little while? This is my number, because we often don't answer when we don't know the number. But if you give them a little heads up, some people are finding that 1-2 punch can be a little bit more effective too.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I hope that helps. Hi, Renee.
Hello there. One of the things to help with the technical stuff between visitor host and VP, I was taught, and I now share this with other chapters, is when you're taking visitor attendance, do it during the meeting. You could do it during the orientation so that it's done. You don't have to worry about it. The only time that there could be if there's a snag and maybe the person's name was registered wrong, you could take care of that later. But it's so much easier and more efficient to do it during the meeting and do it at a time when it's not. Don't do it during the feature presentation or something. Like, do it during the appropriate time of like the orientation where you're getting all the information from or reconfirming that information. It saves headaches.
Yeah, or at the very least, right at the end of the meeting while you're saying, and now it's done. Yeah, I agree. That's great. Susan.
Yeah, I just wanted to add back a little while where they were saying about unlocking the palms. When I actually have to unlock the palms in the comment section, I always write why I unlocked it in case somebody needs to know. So I'll put unlock to add visitors, unlock to correct attendance, something like that, so that I'm sure somebody knows that things are being locked and unlocked. So I like to put a note in there, letting people know why that is happening.
Such a great idea. Such a great idea. You guys, I'm sure have more, and I'm happy to stick around, but I want to make sure that you have everything you need. If you need to log off, since it's exactly at the bottom of the hour, Amber is going to upload some things in the chat here, some places you might find more information. The first one is bnicoreregions.com. And on the leadership team tab, you will see at the very bottom, the visitor host tools and resources. So you'll find full scripts for an orientation. You'll find when are the best times to reach out and contact your visitors and other kinds of things that you might need, slides for your orientation and etc. Another link that is there is the visitor host playlist on the BNI Team USA YouTube channel. When I have had webinars with James Muir, and we've done some very specific sales things, and we've talked about telling your story. I just did a quick little video for this thing here. Every time there's anything related to visitor hosts, I put it on that playlist. So you can go to the BNI Team USA YouTube channel, look for the visitor host playlist. So at least you don't have to go through hundreds of videos if you know you want something for the visitor experience. These are also, this is another slide that you may want to have access to. I can get that to you. Well, it's in the deck, so I'll send this to you a little bit later, just to show people how referrals are better than leads. This is documented across industries. And finally, if this is something, if you are a chapter success coach and you'd like to work with your chapter visitor hosts to fine tune this orientation, or if you are on the visitor host team and you'd like to know what an ideal scenario is and compare it to what you're doing now. This is an audit that you can use. The document that Amber's put into the chat also has talking points for each of the 8 elements so that you can say, well, if we're not conducting one, how do I talk to my team and get us to do one? If we only have one person, how do we get it to be more natural to say, hey, contact sphere, would you come in the orientation with us? Or other kinds of things. You can compare how long is ours. Maybe you've all been in meetings. I know I have, where you're sitting in the orientation and people are leaving the meeting and the orientation is still going on. And the visitors are like, no, I wanted to talk to that guy. He's gone. And that's not the way we want to end our meeting. So we want this to be concise as well. So there's plenty more riches where that came from. I just wanted to let you know where a few of those are. And I will end us with this quote: growth is never by mere chance. It's the result of forces working together. So just like we talked about visitor hosts and VPs talking together, follow up with each other, have one-to-ones. You know, JCPenney's was kind of a big deal in its day, so he might know how to create some good stuff. Good job earning a CEU for today. I'm so grateful that you spent an hour with me. Like I said, I'm happy to spend a little time if people have more questions. It's only 12:30 here. My weekend hasn't begun yet. So feel free to put some questions in the chat or raise your hand and we'll have a conversation. Have a great weekend and thank you so much for coming.
Bye, everyone. Great webinar. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jenny, a couple of things.
Yeah.
I definitely want some of those resources. I couldn't, I know Liz put some of them in, was it Liz that put them in the chat? The other thing is do you do this on a regular basis? There were other chat rooms that I definitely wanted to be in. And so, yeah, I'd like to be able to do that a little bit more.